Welcome back, everybody. I am DJ Riley, one of the hosts from Boys on the Bench, and I am back with my top NBA picks for these Friday matchups. Now, as always, before we jump into this, let's do a recap of yesterday's picks. And it was kind of a brutal ending. We did end up going 2 of 4 on our picks, but the two picks that missed, Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole, were both hooks. We needed both of them to each have just one more stat line that we bet in. Kyle Kuzma thought he for sure had this. He went into halftime with 10 total rebounds plus assists. So I thought for sure it was an easy cash. We needed him to end with 12. He only had one rebound plus assist in the entire second half. So that was a little bit depressing. Jordan Poole kind of just had one rebound in each half, and that was kind of it. So anyways, though, both hooks on both of those plays, but we did I did tell a correlation pick, an NHL correlation pick through Daily Grind Fantasy, which you will hear me reference. And guys, they have a correlation tool on their website that you should be checking out because it really created so many units for them long term. I tailed one of those. It ended up going 5 of 6. The only thing that we lost was this goalie saves. We needed to have under 25.5. He ended up having 26. So we just missed this 25 times multiplier using that correlation tool through Daily Grind Fantasy. So again, you can see that link in the description below. You will hear me reference them through every single one of my picks today. I will be using their optimizer tool to make some of these bets today. Also down there, you will see one of the historical tools that I will be using called Props.Cash. You can check that in the link in the description, as well as our X profile where all of these picks are posted 100% free. Now, also make sure you're checking the comments in the description below, or comments below as well, because I will be posting some replacement picks there as well. Just in case you're seeing this video a little bit later and some of these odds have changed, because they likely will, because that's what happens with Daily Grind Fantasy picks, and that's why you need to be utilizing it as much as possible, because PrizePicks is really one of the slower books to act. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and jump into these picks that I have for you today. So if we jump over here to PrizePicks, you can see that these are my top picks, with Rudy Gobert going under 28.5 points plus rebound. Chet Holmgren going under 12.5 rebounds plus assist. Klay Thompson going over 21.5 PRA. Gary Trent Jr. going over 22.5 points plus rebounds. And finally, Paul George going over 8.5 rebounds plus assists. So if we see what we're getting from Daily Grind Fantasy, you can see that we're actually getting a lot of value today as opposed to some of yesterday's picks. But you can see now we're getting plays over 54.5, which is kind of that magic number that we're wanting, and we can actually build some parlays with. So Rudy Gobert, though, this is our first play, him going under 28.5. Giving it a 54.68% chance of hitting with that average juice of minus 144. Every single book that we see here is offering this at 27.5, meaning PrizePicks is likely off at that 28.5. But if we hop over to Props.Cash, we can see here that if we set this line, they even have it coming in, or we have it at 28.5 here. Over his last 10, he's only hit this in 5 out of his last 10 games. Head-to-head matchup, he's faced Cleveland one time this season and only had 24 points plus rebounds. And looking at the minutes, he played a ton of minutes in that game, nearly 37 minutes of play, which we don't really see him playing that too often. So he played a ton of minutes, still did not hit this line versus this Cleveland team, who again, rebounds plus assists, nearly ranked top 10 in both of those statistical categories. And we can also see that if we go down to the center position, they have dominated this center position, allowing the last 6 centers versus them to not hit their overs. So they have been absolutely, like I said, dominating this center position quite a bit. So definitely love him to go under that 28.5 points plus rebounds. Plus, we're getting very good odds from that Daily Grind Fantasy. Now, if we hop back over here to PrizePicks, see what our next pick is. That's Chet Holmgren going under 12.5 rebounds plus assist. Hopping back over here to Daily Grind Fantasy, that is the second best play that we can be taking. We have 5 books taking this, and they're all coming in at roughly the same line at that minus 140. There's not one book that's kind of overbearing this and setting the market really way off for him. So this is crazy lines, 5 books with an average juice of minus 145. If we hop back over here to Props.Cash, we can see that rebounds plus assists for Chet Holmgren, 12.5. They're offering it at 11.88, giving us roughly a 1 point edge. in favor of the under. So if we click into this and see what we're getting, he has hit this in 4 out of his last 10 games and 3 out of his last 4. But overall, over his last 10, he's hit the under in 6 out of his last 10. Now, the entire season, he's been only hitting this line 32% of the time. He does seem to be having a favorable matchup versus this Toronto team with rebounds plus assists, them ranking near bottom 5 in all of the NBA. But again, Chet Holmgren, these two teams here, Memphis and Utah, ranked near the bottom. They are worse rebounding teams than Toronto is, and he's still barely clearing some of these lines here as well. Head to head, he's had that one head to head matchup versus Toronto this season, and that was here recently, February 4th. And he only ended with 9 rebounds plus assist here as well. So he's played him one time this season, hasn't performed well. And even versus bad rebounding teams, he's not absolutely blowing this line out of the water. But again, more so than anything, we can see again, all of these books are heavily favoring that under for him today. So make sure you jump on that before PrizePicks is able to change it on you. So we hop back over here to PrizePicks, look at our next pick that I have for you. And that's Klay Thompson going more or over 21.5 PRA. See what Daily Grind is giving us. We can see that that's the 4th best play that we have today. So we have him coming in at 21.5, 54.2% chance. Every single book is offering him at 1 point over 22.5. And again, all of those lines are at roughly the same line that we can see there. So now if we hop back over here to Props.Cash, we can see here 21.5 rebound points plus rebounds plus assists. He's hit this line in 6 out of his last 7 games. Head-to-head matchup, he hasn't had a head-to-head matchup versus this Pacers team this season. So if you look back at the last 10, again, we can see his minute usage start to increase. We know that he's kind of been coming off of the bench here lately, or they made that transition, but we can see his minute usage is still kind of staying a little bit high in that mid 20s, which has been getting the job done here recently, especially for him. And now he's playing this Indiana defense that allows the 3rd most points in all of the NBA, which really that's kind of Klay Thompson's game in terms of points plus rebounds plus assists. Not a big rebound guy, definitely not a big assist guy. So the fact that they give up a lot of points is big time for him. Also, 3-point percentage, they're bottom 10 in the league in 3-point percentage allowed. So looking at his potential assists, as I mentioned, not really high here. Really, I'd say his average is probably 3 to 4. We can see there his average is 4. Field goals attempted, though, we can see again over these last 7 games, he has been shooting the ball like crazy, which I especially like coming into this matchup versus this Pacers team who allows a ton of points. I expect him to be shooting the ball like crazy again, how we have been seeing here recently with him. His field goal attempts over his last 10 are 14.3, but over his last 7 are much higher than that. As we can see, a couple games over 15, really all of his games are over 15 except for this one at 13. So definitely higher than that 14.3 that we see there. So I love him going over 21.5 PRA today. PrizePicks, going back over there, our next pick is Gary Trent Jr. going over 22.5 points plus rebounds. Gary Trent right under Klay Thompson going over 22.5. We can see all of the books here again coming in at 23.5, giving us that 1 point edge today. Now looking at Props.Cash and see what we're getting there. Looking at Gary Trent Jr. again, getting it at 22.5. They're offering at 23 here. And right there, we're having a 1.5 point edge, but really we're getting a 2.5 point edge today for his points plus rebounds to go over. Now, looking at his last 5, he's hit this in 4 of his last 5. He's also hit this in 4 of his last 10, but really it's here recently. He's been doing crazy playing. So if we actually got to fix this line as well to 22.5 is which we are getting from PrizePicks today. Now, again, if we look here, looking at his field goal attempts, we can see again 22, 26, 17, 12, 17. So he's been shooting a lot higher here recently. And really that's because of the injuries that we see here for Toronto with Quickly, Barnes, RJ Barrett. All of these guys are out, and these are all starters for them, meaning that he's coming into this really offense here recently. And kind of having to be the go-to guy, right? And again, Oklahoma City defense, they're pretty good defensively, but we see them really, we're looking for 22.5 points plus rebounds. That isn't too hard to get, especially from deep, where we see Gary Trent shooting a good chunk of his shots, and they're allowing a lot of three-pointers made, ranking sixth most in all of the NBA. So definitely love him to go points plus rebounds. If you look at some of his rebounding numbers as well, scrolling down here to his rebounds, really, if we're looking here, he's had a 4.2 average over his last 10. I would say he sits around that 4.2 today as well. Oklahoma City is a very bad rebounding team, allowing the seventh most rebounds in all of the NBA. So if he can sit around that 4 number to where we're having to only hit that 17, 18 point mark, then I think we're sitting pretty well today. But let's hop back over here to PrizePicks. Paul George over 8.5 rebounds plus assists. We can see here, Paul George, that play is over 8.5, 54.02% chance of hitting. All of these plays, they are offering it at 8.5. And again, we do have some pretty high lines at that minus 150, which is making this a little bit of an outlier, but I still really like this because all of these 4 books are coming in heavily favoring it just around the same. But if we look over here at Props.Cash and see what we're getting here, he's hit this line in 6 out of his last 10 games. In head-to-head matchup, he has played this Portland team 3 times this season and has cleared the over both times, or all 3 times versus them this season. So if we go again, looking down here for his rebounds and assists. So his rebounds here, he's not really a big assist guy. His rebounds, though, again, for most games, he's sitting around that 5 to 6 with that average of 5.2 rebounds per game. And then his assist numbers were back up here at the top. Again, like I said, not a big assist guy. He has the potential of sometimes kind of having these random spurts, but an average of 3.7. But as a potential assist, again, those random spurts of games where he kind of pops off. I don't know if we see that today, but Portland does allow the 11th most assists in all of the NBA and 14th most rebounds in all of the NBA. But more so importantly than anything, we can see that again over his 3 games versus them this season, he has cleared the over with that one being that random spurt where he really kind of popped off. The other 2, he reverse hooked it right. He got it barely, but just by that half point. But anyways, I do like this pick. All of the books are heavily favoring it, as I had mentioned, for them all having it around that 139 average juice for today's over on 8.5 for Paul George. So anyways, guys, these are my top 5 NBA picks that I have for you today. Please make sure you're subscribing to this channel. We finally hit 1K subscribers. So thank you so much to everybody who's been following along. And thank you so much if you are now following along to Boys on the Bench. But nonetheless, let's have a great day today. And I will see y'all tomorrow.